Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings with me, Michael Jex, the tea drinking author. And I've got to just say that maybe I've got to stop giving advice on teas. This is a delightful number 4 from Twinings. Very, very tasty, really good, in a nice mug. But when I was working, I spent 4.5 years at Wordplex. I then spent 4.5 years selling computers with Wang Laboratories. And in 13 years, I had a total of 13 jobs because every firm I went to went bust. And so it was fairly quickly decided that anybody who wanted to invest in a company would first find out where I was working to see where not to invest. And I think me advising Twinings tea is rather similar because I really like number 29. Well, I can't buy it anymore. I really like their spicy chai. Can't find that in any shops anymore. They seem to stop producing their teas as soon as I recommend them. I can't get number 4 now, apparently. So, Twinings, get a grip. Anyway, today. Now, papers. For my sins. Some years ago, I took the advice of a friend called Richard who suggested I could start up a Writerly Witterings Pen Pals Club for people who actually wanted to use their fountain pens and write to people, which was such a novel idea, and it took off. And I've got to take this moment to quickly apologise to all those people who have written to me in the last 18 months and haven't had a response yet. I've been inundated with letters. And at the same time as getting diabetes and then having to write rather more books than I expected, having to edit and write several more books than I was really thinking I was going to have to, it just fell by the wayside. But the Pen Pals Writing Club is still going, and if you're interested in trying it out, do please let me know. There's a link down the bottom where you can write. But it's a growing group of many people all over the world who basically want to share their addresses so that they can write to other people. And it's very popular. And it was as a result of one of those people contacting me and saying, you really ought to look at Southworth Paper, that I got in touch with the firm in the first place. So thanks a lot to whoever that was. It was a good 18 months ago now. But I contacted Rachel Sprouse of Southworth and Astro Bright's paper. And Rachel is the Assistant Manager, Digital Marketing and Communications team, which I think means that she's got a business card that's about that long. It may only be that thick, but it's about that long just to accommodate all of her job title. But I'm enormously grateful to Rachel. She sent me a delightful box of goodies for me to review. And this video is the result. So thanks very much, Rachel, and I hope you all enjoy this. And if you are thinking about joining the Pen Pals Writerly Witterings Pen Pals Club, then if you're on the lookout for some decent writing paper, this could be right up your street. I'm going to be quickly talking a little bit about the different things they've sent me, but I've also got to say thanks ever so much for all the people on Patreon. Thanks very much to the people who have bought me coffees and all the rest. And don't forget, if you enjoy this video, watch it to the end, because there's going to be a little freebie at the end of dogs. Because you often get cats in these YouTube videos, so I think it's about time you had some dogs. And I found a whole bunch of videos recently, so I can put them up. And so, having mentioned that, I think now it is time to leap straight into looking at some paper. Over there. Come on. And so here we are back at the writing desk, and I have to say it's a strange thing, but some things seem to keep materialising. This, for example, is the eraser from the top end of a Blackwing pencil. Doesn't seem to matter where I go or what I do. These things just appear. Anyway. What was I sent by Rachel? First of all, I was sent a box of very delightful looking envelopes, 25 of them in a box. I was sent flat panel notes, 30 cards with 30 envelopes. I was sent Southworth note card sets, 12 of 2 designs, 24 in total. Very nice. And I was also sent a packet of Astra Brights. I'm just going to try to turn that light off there to stop quite so much glare. Astro Brights premium smooth cardstock, which will be fun to have a look at, and 2 packs of 50 sheets, £32 in weight, of antique grey tech weave, ideal for stationery proposals presentations. So let's first of all have a look at these cards, and then I'll come on to the envelopes and the paper, because I think that makes the most sense in terms of getting things done quickly. Now, here we are. So here we have cards to say thanks or hello. Just going to move them apart slightly so that we can see what's going on here. Hello and thanks. Hello, perfectly usable little greeting cards with Southworth. Got this nice little herringbone design on it, and a personalised hello, which is, I think, rather nice. And then the thanks in this rather pleasing card, plain on the back, plain inside, so you can just put your own message. It also comes with a plentiful supply of envelopes. These feel good quality. I would estimate they're at least 100 GSM. They certainly feel better than a standard 80. Let's just put these back in here for a second. And let's just see how they respond to a rather gushing fountain pen. My standard test in terms of cruelty to any paper is my Pineda, because this is one of the most gushing pens I possess. And I have to admit, that has behaved remarkably well. I thought that was going to be not very good when I started writing, but there is absolutely no feathering on that. The card has behaved, in my terms, astonishingly well. Very, very good indeed. That's a very impressive response. Now you can see that there is a little bit of, I don't know how to describe it actually. Where there's a dot there, the paper has, I can't pull that up like that. Let's just hold it there. It should be in focus. So every now and again, where I've held the nib, there is a slight amount of soaking in of ink, but I wouldn't say it was a problem, and that is a gushing pen. So let's use this Bastion. Whoops. I haven't used this for a couple of days, so the nib was a little bit dry. And it still is a bit dry. Let's just give it a little bit of a... One trouble with some pens, when you leave them lying around for a little bit too long, they can get a little bit temperamental. Now, there's no feathering as such. That card is behaving really very well compared to other cards I have used. It's not quite perfect, because you can see that there is a little bit of absorption going through. But even so, using this as a card, I think that would be more than acceptable. Oops. After all, if you're using a card, you don't want something that's going to be taking screeds of information. You want something that's going to be just pleasantly usable for writing a fairly short note. If you want to write more, then generally you'll get a sheet of A4 to write it, won't you? So I think that's perfectly acceptable and really rather nice. I do like the idea that there's someone producing cards that are just for simple greetings, something to say thanks for turning up, something to say this is an invitation, come and see us sometime. Whatever it might be, just having that access to a card just for a simple greeting, I think is really rather nice. And I certainly like the quality of that. That's good. So that's the first thing. I could, of course, try to fight on the video to show how it is that you close up. I've managed it. Right, okay, that can go away. I'm not particularly bothered about demonstrating exactly how these cards work, because I'm sure they're pretty much the same sort of stock, but let's just have a quick look. I like the idea of this design. Pleasant card stock. I would say it's slightly finer than these cards. I don't know what the weight is on this. There's 30 cards, 30 envelopes in this box. And on the back it says Nina item 91597, made in China. These other cards are designed in USA, printed and assembled in China using Southworth premium papers. Let's just see how this works. So it's a simple card design. It's rather pleasant because it has the border, which is dangerous. I'll explain why in a moment. And then it has this embossed border within the grey border. When I say it's slightly risky, it's because I think of a dark grey border like this as being something that you send saying, oh sorry and deepest condolences. It's normally the sort of thing that you get either notice of a death, or it's something where you're responding to an invitation after someone's death. Now this doesn't seem to be working quite as well. Now the Pineda I'm using is a gusher. Actually, I think there might have been a slight amount of waxiness there. It doesn't seem quite so happy, this card. Let's try it again with the Bastion. Bastion? It's not a French thing, you fool. I've got to just say this is using Blue Mar from Rohre und Klingner. Whereas the Pineda has got Diamine Prussian Blue, because it's a colour I like. In fact, I like both these colours, which is why they happen to be in the pens right now, oddly enough. So let's just see, that's writing on the front side. The slightly does not seem happy. The S there, you can see, has got some feathering, and the end of the G, the dots seem to have feathering too. But then when I wrote on this line, it was much happier. So I don't know if that's just a slight fault up in that area of the paper, of the card. Certainly using Blue Mar, it was a lot happier. There is a little bit, I can see spots of colour coming through here. However, they all seem to be with the Diamine Prussian Blue, not any of them with the Bastion pen. So I would reckon this card is perfectly adequate for most medium nibs and definitely most extra fine or fine nibs. If you go above medium, then maybe it's going to get a little bit more tricky. Okay, moving on. Let's have a look at some paper. Okay, so returning now with paper. £32 paper, which is 120 GM, which is serious paper actually. I like the sound of that. Oh, I don't need a knife. I can just pull it open. It's so good. I don't want to take out the whole lot. I'm just going to try to remove a sheet or two. Here we go. Right. First off, very interesting texture. It's obviously been over a roller machine of some sort, and it's given it a sort of a diagonal spread in a series of dots. So you can see individual lines which is dotted all the way along. Not hugely noticeable, but it's just enough to give it a bit of feel. Now, the paper I tend to resort to most of the time remains Three Candlesticks, which I think has got a lovely feel to it. It's got a lovely bit of blotting paper in the front, which is pretty messy, as you can see. But Three Candlesticks, let's just do a quick test. Again, Pineda. It's an EF nib, but very flexible. And that means an absolute gusher. Whereas here I have my trusty Bastion fountain pen. Now this paper is, I assume, on the B series in terms of sizes. It is P4TO white laid writing paper, 89 by 187 millimeters. Well, that's really not much help, is it? Anyway, it's not A4, whereas this paper from Southworth definitely is A4. So let's see. That's writing straight onto 3 candlesticks. It does come through in places. However, it's still one of my favourite writing papers because it just feels so nice. Now, you can't assume that all writing papers are going to take fountain pens perfectly happily. Most ain't that happy. Oh, wow. No, I'm joking. You can't feel every fibre, but there is a definite sense that you're writing on something. It's not smooth. It's not, in my artistic manner, I like cartridge paper. Cartridge paper is absolutely smooth and quite beautiful. This is much more like an artist paper. It's like a watercolour paper. Now, whoops, watercolour, and I can't spell the word now. Watercolour, using a bastion. Now, why I'm using the bastion is mainly because this is a solid steel nib rather than a gold nib, and it will give a different impression. And certainly, strangely enough, it almost feels smoother. Probably because the steel just glides across the fibres. Whereas the gold nib floats rather more, so you can feel it snagging the fibres, I think. I'm not sure, but that's the only explanation I can give for that. So what does it look like on the back? Let's have a look. Oh my word, absolutely nothing whatsoever has come through. So just to reiterate, no feathering, no bleed through, no ghosting, absolutely nothing whatsoever. Sorry, 3 candlesticks. All I can say is highly recommended paper. But of course, this is not all, is it? I have more paper. Let's see what that's like. Now this one's going to be interesting because this is cardstock. So it should be perfectly alright, I'd have thought, with most things. No easy way of entering this, so I'm going to get my little knife out. Which doesn't always work perfectly, but it's good enough for this. So this is £65 paper, 176 GSM. I have never used paper of such weight. Apparently you get 80 sheets in this. What is it? It's not a ream, is it? It's only 80 sheets. So you get 80 sheets in this package. Let's leave it at that. It is 8.5 by 11 inches, so I think that's standard A4. Let's just check against that. It's certainly the same size as their other stuff. And that's all you're told. So, make of that what you wish. Let's get one. Here we go. Very bright. Very smooth. Seems to have the same texture both sides. I should just say this also seems to have the same texture both sides. I should just check that, shouldn't I? This is the other side. And that feels exactly the same as the first. Plus, still no ghosting, no feathering, no nothing. Let's just get another quick Bastion pencil and test this. Very, very nice. Very nice indeed. I'm going to put a load more ink into this nib now. Right, I have to apologise for all of you. There is a hair just got stuck on my nib, and it was the hair those smudges. And there you have it. My apologies for that. Those were all a hair stuck on my nib. These things do happen. Now, astonishingly, bearing in mind this is thicker cardstock, there is a little bit of ghosting coming through. Just a little bit. So there, 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 there. And I would guess they line up with the problems with the hair getting stuck on the nib. However, there is a little bit of ghosting. But as a business paper for use in presentations, that's gorgeous. When it comes down to it, out of these three, these cards, the hello, greetings cards and the thank you cards, are plentifully adequate. I wouldn't go further than that. There is a certain amount of feathering on that, so you wouldn't want to use it with a particularly wet nib. The cards I like. There's a little bit of feathering still. I do like having this little edgy border around it. That's nice. I'm not so sure about the dark grey because, as I said, in England that would normally be an indication you're getting something saying, oh, I'm sorry, Bob's just died. But I still like the idea of having nice little cards that you can use to send out. On these two, I'm absolutely sold. especially on this. This paper is just magnificent. It is superb. Looks really good, it feels nice. I'm not usually a fan of greys, but this is quite a bright light colour grey, which is appealing. It looks good. It means that my Prussian blue looks more dark grey than blue, but doesn't matter, it still works perfectly well, and I do love Prussian blue in a fountain pen. But finding some decent quality paper that I can use quite happily a fountain pen on is a delight, and that paper is quite astonishingly good. Now there is one last thing, of course. I'm not going to bother writing on these because it would seem to be a waste, but the envelopes, let's have a quick look inside them. My current standard envelope tends to be these rather splendid ones from Three Candles, which are delightful, and they've got a separate fine lining on the inside. I like them, but I must admit I feel guilty using them because they feel just a bit excessive. They are very Victorian. What have we got here? These are much more simple. Straightforward envelope. Perfectly adequate for business or personal use. You can fold up your A4 into 3 to fit inside. I'm sure that this would be perfectly happy with inks. It's not something I normally test because, well, I don't usually use fountain pens on the outside of an envelope, purely because I tend to only use fountain pen inks that are not waterproof. But certainly if you wanted to use a fountain pen, from the look of that, there's no feathering, no problems at all. That would work perfectly well, so long as you're happy with the idea that if it gets wet, no one can read your address. So there you have it. My word, I wasn't expecting something quite that good. Well now, I was quite surprised by that. Very impressed with the design of the cards. Less impressed with their ink absorbability, but the paper is fantastic. And I can easily see that 50 sheets of that, or even 100 sheets with 2 boxes, isn't going to last me very long. I'm going to be going back to that. So, thanks a lot for watching. Hope that was interesting. To all of you on Patreon who are supporting me, thanks very much. Don't forget, if you're not doing that, you can always buy me a coffee. There's a link down the bottom. I will also be very happy to talk to anybody who wants to ask me about different types of paper in the comments below. I can always respond to you there. And apart from that, if you wouldn't mind, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done that. Hit the bell so you're notified about new videos coming through, and don't forget to mention it to all your friends so that they watch it as well. And now here's that silly little video I mentioned earlier. Lots of teeth. Good girl.